Hello everyone, my name is Dimitra Buzuka and today I'm going to share with you my research in early childhood education. Title of the research is Partnership between Families and Early Childhood Educators. The two main questions were how do early childhood educators support families from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds in their services, and how do early childhood educators make the program inclusive for children from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Introduction. The partnership between families and educators has been highlighted as a very crucial factor in Australia over the last 10 decades. As set forth through national quality standards, Quality Area 6 collaborative partnership with families and communities aims to recognize families' collaboration as a fundamental achievement of quality education for children. Rossetti 2018 highlighted the barriers identified by culturally and linguistically diverse families, having English as a second language, finding difficult or being unable to communicate their needs and expectations, resulting in a lack of receiving the proper and necessary information for the development of and learning from the children by the educators. Child Australia discussed the types of barriers identified in terms of active participation, including language barriers, fear of criticism, a lack of appreciation from teachers to parents, lack of cultural identity, and lack of opportunity for participation from the schools to parents. Despite the initiatives and efforts by the Australian Ministry of Education on assisting and guiding best practices between families and educators, and considerable amount of pieces of literature will raise the researchers' curiosity to a level of concern. This intrigued the researcher to approach the problem, identify current practices, and find ways educators positively dealing with the issue by considering inclusive practices. A qualitative approach was evident in this research, as the researcher aimed to investigate and interpret early childhood educators' insights while supporting and practice inclusiveness to boost partnership with culturally and diverse families. The researcher adopted an inductive approach for the study, aimed to investigate and record the pre-stated questions, withdrawing any hypotheses or predetermine any of these for the results. The philosophy was adopted a social structure of social constructivism. The design was ethnographic to record early childhood educators' social cultural contexts. The ethnography nature supported research that focused on specific settings and various interactions among educators and cultural linguistic families. And let's go to the context. The present study focused on cultural and linguistically obviously diverse families and the collaboration with early childhood educators. The researcher conducted in a long-day care service located in Sydney City, Piedmont in Australia. Methodology and data collections. The researcher used two main methodologies. Methodology number one, face-to-face semi-structured interviews that covered the researcher's two main questions and were all audio recorded with two exemptions. The second data was a written questionnaire which provided to the participants along with informed consent letter to be filled before the research conducted. The questionnaire questions were closed and open-ended questions aiming to understand participants' ethnography, such as age, years of experience, the cultural and linguistic backgrounds, and inclusive practices. The questions aim to prompt participants to critically think, answer, and reflect on the educational practices with methods and ways they communicate, how they create partnership, how they support, and how they welcome families and children in their services. However, the privacy of participants remained confidential as none of them were asked to record personal details such as name, surname, or any details recorded from the researcher during the interviews to avoid biases, of course. Ethics. The researcher obeyed the Code of Ethics, Privacy Act, United Nations Convention for Rights of the Child. First and before the beginning of the research, I provided the collected the agreement letter from the director of the service and participants. The study remained confidential as the researcher did not recorded the service name or participant name or surname. All the participants allocated with names such as room name, baby, toddlers, preschoolers, and floated, and allocated the participants alphabetically. The participants varied, with educators working across all the age groups in the center. They were all cultural and linguistic backgrounds. 2 educators worked with birth to 15 months, 2 work with 15 to 2 years, 3 work with 2 to 3 years, and 5 work with 3 to 5 years old. Total number of participants were 12. Let's go through the findings and results. Question number 1, age group analysis. The data collected from the questionnaire showed in figure 1 that 4 out of the 12 educators, participants, were between 20 to 25 years old, and 3 out of 12 were between 33 to 40 years old. Question number 2, the participants' level of qualification. Only 10% of the educators had a certificate 3, 50 completed a diploma, and 30 completed a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. Question number 3, years of working experience. The data collected that only 1 participant had 6 to 8 years working experience. None of the participants indicated 9 to 10 years of experience. 2 participants indicated over 10 years of experience, and the highest value with the 5 participants having 3 to 5 years working experience. The level in question number 8, level of confidence when communicating with culturally and linguistically families. Only 1 participant felt very confident when communicating with the families. The highest value with a 7 indicated there were 4 very fairly. None of them felt there were 1 non-confident or 2 not very confident, which highlighted that the participants had a competent level of formal and informal communication with the families. Let's go through the analysis and interpretation data. For the questionnaire narratives, analysis and interpretation, the majority of the participants, which was 98%, coming from cultural and linguistic background. The questionnaire data collected that 9 out of 12 were born overseas and migrated to Australia from cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds such as Latinos, Colombian, Brazilian, Vietnamese, Indian, Chinese, Asian, and Italian. Only 1 born in Australia by Japanese parents, both with Japanese and English linguistic background, and is referred as an Australian with an English linguistic background. And another one which was exactly the same, referred as an Australian and English linguistic background. On the question, how do you ensure families from cultural linguistic backgrounds feel welcome at your center? Most of them said welcoming, creating a welcoming and warm environment for the families, greeted them with a smile, create multicultural walls, display the flags, use words like hello and welcome in different languages according to children's understanding in the center's heritage. In the question, in your own words, please state 3 ways of communication you use to communicate with diverse families. Of the 50% agreed by recording the same or similar methods, such as conversations, phone calls, and try to learn a few words from the families in their language. Also, they use body language and pictures. Educator A, let's say she said translator, pictures, and educator F said English, body language, and pictures. On question, what challenged you the most when working with cultural and linguistic diverse families and children? Refer to families' challenges, where the home practices, language barrier, personal beliefs, and tradition. Answers referring to the children's challenges, where the language, body language, and highlighted strategies to support the practices, such as sign language, images, hand coordination, and food preferences. Overall, those 2 questions overlap to the point that 100% of the participants use the word language as the most significant barrier, where 80% of them recorded as a solution to body language, sign language, Google Translator, or diverse staff available to interpret the conversation. Question: how do you promote peer-to-peer interaction with cultural and diverse children? The participants highlighted some strategies here, with 70% of them using strategies such as images, dramatic play, games, books, songs, and videos. Let's say educated D, she said, using non-verbal ways to play, active games, art, and craft activities. The majority of them, 90%, in the question, in your own opinion, how does family collaboration benefit the learning of the child coming from a culture and diverse background? They all agreed that the collaboration with the families is vital by highlighting in their own opinions below. An example is by Educated D, which says it helps to be open-minded and learn that different does not mean bad. And Educator A said, when we communicate with the families, we know children's routine. We know how home practices, food preferences, strengths, abilities, and interests. Going to the interview analysis. Question number 1, how do early childhood educators support families from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds? All interviews agreed that the language was the most significant barriers to successful communication. Therefore, they highlighted strategies and solutions they use according to families' needs, and these highlighted the majority of the interviews felt that inclusiveness was the key. Orientation was the most crucial aspect to communicate with them, with educators saying, I use a translator to communicate with families. I'm not speaking English daily. Educator F, actively listening to the families. And educator EA, families without English, I will use body language. Question number 2. Overall, the interviews agreed that it was vital to try and learn some common words from the families, acknowledging the tradition and customs by displaying family roles in the classroom, flags with greetings, words like hello and welcome, adding the curriculum, a cultural event, celebrate with the families, implement incursions and invite them to share information. Well, Educator A shared a personal experience. She said, I remember I had a child in the baby room when the baby always picked up from the grandma, but grandma does not have English. So because we speak the same language, I was the one who would speak daily and share information. An analysis for question number 2, how do early child education make the programs inclusive for children with diverse backgrounds? The answers were varied, with others correlated. A summary is, let's say, Educated D, we're trying to include into our programming every single event celebrate by our families, such as Chinese New Year. Educator F, she said, I can show them different cultural clothes and next day ask them to dress up, so I will be embedded and extended to the child to understand and feel welcome. And Educator L said, use signage a lot in the classroom, like hola, bonjour, yasas, to highlight our inclusiveness. I see that as a good way, and I will take on a step further. Going through the conclusion and recommendation, the researcher recorded significant findings which emerged from the study as the participants recognized as self-aware by the researcher on the key barriers, which was language, communication, sharing information, effective teaching strategies, and links with the community to support children and engaged families from cultural and linguistic backgrounds. The researcher recommended professional development for the interviewees who performed the lowest in understanding and responding to the questionnaires and interviews by undertaking webinars and workshops. Also suggested that the diploma qualified educators to enroll in highest courses or undertake courses specific to their weaknesses on the relevant topic to develop skills, enhance academic knowledge, and further support families and children from diverse backgrounds. Surprisingly, though, the Certificate 3 educator seemed to have an advanced understanding of the subject, providing definite question answers. The table here summarizes the teacher's recommendations on future improvement. The 40% of the participants recommended in the question one, how do early childhood educators support families from diverse backgrounds by saying educator E. In enrollment pack, we should have all languages, where educator A is very similar. Families without English language always use body language. Look for a person, staff in the childcare to communicate with them. Use some methods like video for enrollment in a different language. Where participant K recommending question to how do early childhood educators make the program inclusive for children from diverse backgrounds by saying no matter if we have different educators from various backgrounds, I will hire uh, staff from different backgrounds that relate to children's attending backgrounds because it will be easier and direct support for the children. Going to the next step in future recommendations and in future research. Future research to investigate and the most significant limitation of the study. The participants lacked the knowledge to embrace and include indigenous culture through collaboration with the local Aboriginal community councils. That was my observation. Some future questions for further research might be, what strategies do you use to embrace Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture in your curriculum with children? Number two, what is your understanding of the local community, of the local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture? And number three, how often do you visit the local community council consultant and work along with elders on your center's reconciliation plan? Here is my referencing. And thank you so much.